All right, welcome to Worthy Women Wednesday. Today I have a very special guest today, Juri Love. She does it all. Not only has she gone through painful past experiences with childhood sexual abuse, but she is using that to show up really powerfully in the world as a journalist, actress, singer. She's been nominated with many awards as well from the Boston Celtics and much more. And so I'm really excited to have you on today and sharing your story and really sharing how you're showing up in the world now. So thank you so much, Juri, for being on my show.
Alisha, it's an honor to be on your show. I'm so excited to have met you in Phoenix and now
Yes.
on the live together.
Yeah, so amazing. Yes, I had the honor to actually meet you in person, which doesn't always happen these days. A lot of things are virtual right now. But I had the honor of hearing Juri's story in person at a Next Gen event. And so I got to hear a little bit about it, but I know that there's more that I still have not heard. And I also ordered your book on Amazon, so I'm excited about that as well.
Yeah.
But let's go ahead and start with just yes, exactly. I'm going to post the links below. You will absolutely want to get this book. I was reading just like the cliff notes of it, and it was so powerful already. So I'm so excited to actually read it, Juri. But let's start back and talk about your story. Whatever you feel comfortable sharing, I would love to hear your story.
Sure. So my name is Love. I'm from Japan, and then I came to America in 1998. But my story, that a gift from adversity, which I published last year, and then which became Amazon #1 new release in all three categories.
Wow.
About the subtitle is Overcoming Sexual Abuse, Domestic Violence, Bullying, and Homelessness, and it's a 100% true story. That basically my story is, I grew up in Japan in very small town, and my parents got divorced when I was 8. And then when my mom left, she is a victim of domestic violence, and my dad shifted his attention to me, and I started to get physically, emotionally, and sexually abused. And then I was between 8 to 13. Obviously, like as a child, it's very difficult to understand what's going on, especially sexual abuse from your father. You just never understand, comprehend the magnitude of it. And basically, I got like this weird instinct that I don't think I would survive if I kept living with him. So when I was 13, I called my mom, secretly, and then met up with her secretly and arranged the move. And I basically escaped from my biological father when I was 13. And then basically what happened was I started to live with my mom after I escaped from my dad. Then when I told my mom about the sexual abuse part, then she just didn't believe it because it was in 1980s. I was born in 76 and nobody in Japan like talked about it. And I didn't know anything about PTSD or abuse until later in my 20s. And basically, when I told her, she said I made it up. So I basically got very destroyed by that. And then I tried to kill myself when I was 15. And my mom discovered me when I was trying to kill myself. And she put me on like a medication and counseling or why not. And then, so then I think she thought I was crazy because there was no mental health issues or sexual abuse thing talked about in that era in Japan. Considered maybe a shame. So
And your daughter's totally okay. I want you to introduce her in a little bit anyway. So it's totally okay. It's not a problem. We
anyway,
actually are excited to see your
yeah.
daughter, so she's very adorable.
That's
Yeah.
okay.
Yes. Good. Don't even worry. She's absolutely fine playing in the
So
background.
anyways, so basically, around that time, I was very depressed. I was gonna drop out my high school in Japan, and then somebody at that time told me that I should volunteer and then help people with disability, and then that really changed my perspective in life, and I started to really realize my potential. And then I decided to myself that I would never complain, I would never like tell myself that I can't do it. That was when I was 17. So I applied to come to America from like government kind of youth program. So I passed and I was greeted by Japanese crown prince and princess who now are Japanese emperor and empress. At the time, I came to America endorsed by city and the government for the first time for 2 weeks, and I went back to Japan, but I wanted to come back, so I came back for 6 months program in Washington State, and then when I came back to Japan, my mom well, my sister was at the airport and then said I had to be independent. So I completely became homeless when I was 18. So and basically, like in my book, I wrote list of things that I've done, like how I survived homelessness and how I was abused, like really graphically. Then I saved like about $30,000 on my own when I was 18, 19,
No way.
started
Incredible.
and then came to America, and that's how I started Berkeley College of Music. And then upon graduation, I started a community service for my senior project. It was 2001 when 9/11 happened, and then I felt compelled to help people. So I started a nonprofit, and then I didn't know anything about nonprofit, but I ran it. Basically, our nonprofit was called Genuine Voices, and we ran it for 12 years, and we were teaching music to juvenile offenders. And then in the result, we absolutely saved many lives through music. We've had maybe over a couple hundred volunteers, interns from all over. And then in the result, I got this beautiful trophy. I have it here, Boston Politics, Heroes Among Us Award. So my book talks about um, chapter one. I talk about when I was receiving an award from Boston Celtics, and it goes back to my upbringing from Japan.
Okay. Yeah.
That's kind of my book, and it talked about a lot of things. But as a survivor of the child sex abuse and then homelessness and DV and all that stuff, as I shared on the stage in Phoenix, that it's just constant fight of inner voice, and then especially emotional over abuse at like early childhood and the development stage psychologically, you are just like pounced with this negativity, and then the image that you don't know, but you are told always that you're stupid, you're worthless, you're a whore, all this stuff. And you start to believe that, but then the challenge is I'm 44 now, like how do I overcome those like the moments that I still feel like low self-esteem, and sometimes panic attacks, still like PTSD or stuff, like so constantly like I really struggle. But in my book I talk about forgiveness. It is a part that I was on a podcast with my friend yesterday, and he actually bought the book, and I highlighted the sentence that I wrote. It's called forgive myself for not forgiving perpetrator, because a lot of people will say you forgive and you forget whatever, but it doesn't work in a situation when you're a victim of that magnitude of trauma, and then there's no justice. I told myself it's okay to not forgive somebody. Like, so forgive myself for not forgiving some perpetrators, because the crime shouldn't not be forgiven. And then it's okay to have peace to yourself for knowing that I'm at least the last person standing on the earth that doesn't forgive that person because what he did was wrong. And I think it's totally okay.
Yeah.
So long story, but that's really my book, and I'm very proud of who I became today. And then it's still a constant struggle, and as a survivor of abuse or sexual abuse, I think a lot of survivors can understand, like how I feel, and it's a
Completely.
constant struggle like throughout your life, but it
Yeah.
just, you have to keep moving forward, right?
Yes. Oh my goodness. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. Man, I am so proud of you, Dre, for where you have become or where you've come since then. And thank you for sharing vulnerably about your childhood abuse and things that came up and things that are still coming up. I love your honesty because, yes, there are some things that still come up for me as well. with recovering from childhood sexual abuse from 11 to 13. So I understand that part of your story as well, that it's a continuous healing journey. But where I want to go back, and I know that our audience can understand this and really relate to this, is that your mom didn't believe you, right? And so you stood up for yourself. You got yourself out of that situation with your dad, and you finally probably shared your story, which was a huge deal. I know that it had to be a huge deal, and she didn't believe you. And so, can you just speak into, for one, how that felt? And was there somebody in your life who finally believed you with your story?
First of all, when I was living with my dad, some of my friends, like that I told, definitely believed me, but we were kids, we were like 13. And then there was no child advocacy or agency like here that we had no idea what to do with this.
Yeah.
And then, um, to be honest with you, when I told my mom, she took a night, and then after like talking to her husband, she got remarried and then came back. I remember clearly that, oh, we decided that you made it up. I think you are like talking about like a ghost story or like a folklore. I don't know. It was just so bad. And then in my book, I talked about I felt like every single cell got destroyed in that moment. And then after that, well, I don't think I really told many people in a way that I just didn't I just I feel like I numbed myself like after that. Like it just like never served the justice. And then it's very hard to like comprehend, but at the same time my counselor later on, like in my 30s, in America, when I started to I did counseling for 6 years. She said 80% of mothers statistically don't believe the child sex abuse that was caused by their sexual partners.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
So
I believe that.
it's really significant number, 80%. So in
Yeah.
one sense, maybe my mom was normal, but obviously I wish it was 20% side. But that's why I feel so what happened was the reason why one of the reasons why I felt compelled to write my book and share a story was I've done a lot of public speaking, and then people ask me like, oh, do you have a book? Do you have a book? But not only that, but just the awareness around family and then victims. And then in my book, chapter 7, I talk about the messages, and then there's three parts to it, and one is to the victim and one is to the perpetrator, which I kind of indirectly message to my dad. And then another thing is family and the victims around, the family and friends around the victim. And the way that I felt compelled to educate or bring awareness to this matter because of what I experienced was not so many people can comprehend the father is molesting the daughter, vice versa. I've heard the other case too, mother molesting the boy, or brother, sister, babysitter, like somebody close. And there are a significant number of the perpetrator, a lot of like abusive perpetrator being higher number percentage that kids actually know them. It's not a stranger.
Almost
And
higher than you know.
devastating. Yes, exactly. So, long answer, but yeah, it's
Well,
devastating.
what's interesting that you just said too was that like you tried to share your story. And that was the case for me too. Like you tried to share it and you did share it with friends, but they didn't know what to do. And that's what's so important about not only talking to your kids about it, but what your kids could possibly do to save somebody else's life. Because one of my friends, her story was that she went through abuse too. And so she talked to her kids about it, all four kids, and her son came to her and told her, hey, mom, I think my girlfriend is being abused. And so that's the power of actually being able to share that. But what you just said too is so common that people don't know what to do in those cases. And so, what would you suggest people who maybe have some like thoughts that maybe someone's getting abused or someone has told them? What are your steps to supporting that child now? What would you tell somebody now?
Okay, so there's kind of scary scenario that I can just share with you. So district attorney, so once the sexual assault is reported, the case will be investigated by police, and then it's gonna go to the district attorney's office. Well, I don't know about other states, but at least in the state of Massachusetts, now the first witness becomes somebody that you tell becomes first witness that has to come to the trial. So I would say the mother or whoever, if you're an adult, if you're like older, then if you can go to police yourself, I would encourage you to go to police instead of talking to anybody else, because then the police, whoever is on the duty, becomes your first witness, and then police will go to the trial with you. Where if you tell your friends, they have to come to trial with you, so then it'll be scary, and there's a protection, like it's like a felony charge if you the perpetrator comes to contact the is like a victim's like no protection, but then if that person has family member, they are not protected, right? And then
Yeah.
my biggest thing is to advocate, if you want to go on trial and then bring justice to this crime,
Mm-hmm.
only choose who you talk to as a first witness, and I would encourage you to go to police. Then
Okay.
you would have extra protection to become your first witness and go to trial. Because I don't think many perpetrator will go after police and mess with them versus your friends.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Scary, but if that would ever happen to me, I would never tell anybody, but go straight to the police because of the system, because of the trial, because of the justice. Um, all the witness has to come to the trial, right?
Yeah.
So that's one legal side of it. But the other side of it, if you have like friends or family who do not believe you, skip to another person.
Yes, absolutely. Keep going, keep sharing because someone eventually will. Yeah.
There's a really great resource. Rain is one. I think you know, RAINN,
Yeah.
Rain. And
Great.
also Darkness to Light. I don't know if you know Darkness to Light.
Yeah.
Ali,
We'll comment these below, guys, so you guys have these resources too.
so Darkness to Light has an excellent training just to share about child sex abuse.
Okay.
That I live in Massachusetts has very sad history about our town leader educator molested over like 100 boys in 80s, and then later on recently when they became adult they came out and then told, and then dozens of people came and the perpetrator actually died, but then our town made a law that every single employee that comes to our town building must take this darkness to light training, which I did because I was volunteering at the Foxborough Cable Access and I was running youth program, and the training program is $25 and it's so powerful. It really talks about how to identify the sign of the child sex abuse, or importance of teaching body parts to your child as is, like a penis or vagina. There's a case that like the preschooler went to school and then said, oh, my dad ate my cookie or something, so because the kids don't know.
Yeah.
One important thing, and then also to not leave a child alone in a room, always have two people. So in where I volunteered, this is before pandemic, when the one youth was in the building, we must have two adults in presence, and that was a policy. So those policy makers and the protections from the upper level is important, and I think anybody can take the training from Darkness to Light. Ali Weisman, who's a victim of sexual abuse, the Olympic gold medalist, like she's one of the advocates for that organization. Um,
Yeah,
I
definitely.
recommend that as a resource. And I know like Rain has hotlines, and then
Yeah,
local police definitely. I would use those resources. And people are absolutely afraid to go to police, but I
yeah,
think it's so important to not be afraid to tell your story at
yeah.
a police station.
Yeah, I love that because what I heard you say is that you get to keep going until someone does believe you. Because yeah, the truth is that only like almost like 40% of people are believed, but the other 60 usually aren't believed. And that was my story as well. My mom said it takes two when it happened in the family with me, and so she blamed me for years. And so I know a lot of people can relate to our stories here. But the important thing is that you kept going and you just shared like going to the police can be scary, but to encourage you guys, you're worth getting support. You're worth getting support. So, can you kind of speak to somebody who might be going through this right now, or like I said, know somebody and they're scared to speak up because they don't feel like their voices are going to be heard, or maybe they try to tell one person but they didn't believe them? Can you just speak some wisdom and some love into the audience about how much your story really does matter?
Thank you so much for bringing it up. And you absolutely feel alone, and especially, when you are getting heavily abused, and then, having panic attack, PTSD, and don't know what to do. You absolutely want to lock yourself in the bathroom and then just want to kill yourself, and then you just can't move on. And I've been there, and then I completely understand. My book, A Gift from Adversity, page 116, there is a message to the perpetrator, which I completely talk about, um, that it's a lot of time victims feel ashamed, we feel embarrassed for some reason, but that is completely other way around. Perpetrators should be silenced, they should be ashamed, they should be embarrassed, they should be brought to justice. And then another thing I want to talk about, I even tell my son who's 10 that I am your mom. That doesn't mean if I do something wrong that you have to keep respecting me. You use your own judgment. If I do something wrong to you, you are old enough to judge me, and you don't have to like respect me. And that's a lot of cases, especially like Asian country or African countries, or somewhere that women's rights are not so developed like America, that we are believed to obey, obviously, and not to talk back. And then when I actually talked back, my dad beat me to death, so I couldn't. Like, I was so traumatized, and then now I still have like really big trauma of like confrontation with men, especially authorities. I get really tensed up, and then sometimes I silence myself. So I just want to tell the victims or survivors that you know at the end of the day, there are resources, and there are friends, boyfriend or husband, whoever. You have to get your shit. You have to rise up, and you have to tell yourself, you know, the void that's created would never be filled unless otherwise you fill it yourself. And you have to stand up for yourself, and nobody would help you. I have to be bluntly honest with you, because I had really suffered with sex addiction, relying on men, and then just trying to fill that void, and that would never happen. And being very realistic and very honest with you, because I don't want anyone to waste time like I did. I feel like I wasted 20, 30 years, good chunk of my life, majority of my life being depressed, not understanding what was going on inside of me. And I wish somebody ever, like, been there and it told me. So my epigraph, I just want to share my epigraph, which is my original epigraph, which is two sentences. It says, the sooner you can find the courage to accept your adversity, the sooner you can pave a positive path in your precious life. And
Yeah.
that is exactly why I'm passionate about sharing my story, because sooner you can find the courage to accept your adversity. That means do not doubt what happened. It's what happened. It's not who you are, and you can't change the past, right? So you to accept it, and it is what is what happened. So what can you do today, right now, to overcome it, and then to not let anyone bother you, you know?
Yeah, I love that. And so you pointed out, for one, you pointed out that, you know, you can't depend on anybody else. And yes, absolutely, you get to show up. I love that you point that out because you get to fully like show up for yourself first because no one can do it for you. You know, and I know that people, and this goes both ways. I know that you probably have seen other people who've gone through abuse and you're like, let me pull you out of there, right? And I do the same thing. I'm like, let me pull you out of there. But until you choose to show up for yourself, there's no way for other people around you to support you. So it gets to start with you first. And so, what were some tools that you use daily? Like when you woke up in the morning, how did you show up for yourself? Because it starts like you said, right now. So I hope people who are listening, who hear your tools, and maybe it might be one of the tools to support you. Maybe it might be all three, whatever it is that you shared. I just want people to know that you get to actually write these down to implement them, right? So how do you show up for yourself in the mornings?
So, Alicia, I think people think I'm a crazy person, but I don't sleep much. I sleep maybe like 4 to 5 hours, but it's been like this for like 20 years. So,
You must get a lot done.
last night I had full day. Like I had a movie set. I was on the fitting on a huge movie set, and then I had taught. I was had interview. I had phone calls, like list of things, and I'm a day trader. I trade stock and I write article. So yes, I was on interview until like 1 in the morning. I was recording podcasts, two shows, 1 in the morning, and after that, I wrote an article about stop Asian hate, Asian against crime, Asian crime against Asian crime story, and then I had maybe like 6, 7, 8 like emails, like whatever,
A lot, yeah.
and then I just don't think about it. I think and I woke up at night. I slept 4 hours. I woke up at 9, and then I worked, and then I had some more interviews that I have to do, blah blah blah. But what I'm saying is that I myself, I worked really, really extremely hard to get to where I am, being a journalist, model, actor, single mom, musician, like one project coming, but I have a really good discipline to just go like task by task. And when I was running nonprofit, I was busier than now because I had so many volunteers and programs. I think my counselor was telling me a lot of people who goes through abuse either become drug addiction, suffer with addictions and substance and why not. And another thing is like super achievement, like you never feel like you are enough. So I don't know if I'm in a way it's healthy, but like my counselor said, it's almost like I don't feel enough, so I have to keep going. So to answer your question, I'm not gonna sugarcoat. I'm not gonna be like an angel saying that you're gonna be okay. It's hard work, and it is how much can you face your reality. It is how much do you have courage to accept what happened, and how much can you recognize the significance of void that would never be filled. So in a way that every day just live the moment, and then every day just go whatever you have to go, and then appreciate the opportunity. Like today, right now, I'm live getting interviewed by you. I appreciate it so much, and each moment when you get to talk to people, share your story, or even if you don't share your story, just live, and then truly, truly, like just um don't overthink. And
Yeah, absolutely. And I love when you got a good assistant over there. That's awesome. No, but I love what you said there. You talked about the point that when you've gone through abuse or painful past experiences, you get really busy to show up and act like you're enough, right? And I know that everyone listening can relate to that at a point because we try to just stay busy, busy, busy to not have to show up for ourselves, not have to check in on ourselves sometimes. So I'm curious, like with being so busy as you are, with doing so many things, is that honestly working for you? Like, and I'm just curious if that's working for you, staying busy, or is it something where you're like, I feel like I have to stay busy?
I think it's combination. I just feel that right now at this point of my life, I have established a lot of careers, and then people expect me to say, for instance, write an article like every week, like have like 20, 30,000 guaranteed readers, or you know producing TV, booking guests, or like I don't have to, but I do have expectation of myself at this point, regardless of trauma or not. I feel that again, I worked so hard to get to where I am. The people trust my work, people trust me. That I'm not gonna let myself down, and I'm not gonna let other people, down. And then at some point, yes, trauma and the sexual abuse was core or motivation.
Mhm.
At some point, you have to just forget those things, and then you have to tell yourself that you're talented, you have ability to do this, and then you have opportunity to do this, and you have to like kind of embrace the opportunity and then appreciate the opportunity. And then I truly believe in manifestation, and I truly believe the goals. Like this book was completely my manifestation. I wanted to publish a book, and then I wanted to go through the publisher. So
Did
that's
it?
my goal.
Yes.
So to answer the question, I'm not sure if I feel that maybe I'm beating myself up, overworking, or I feel good. But it's been like this for at least past 20 years. So, and to be honest with you, I feel very lazy if I sleep like 8 to 10 hours ever, and then I keep dreaming like intensely. So I feel tired. Yeah, but I think it's part of discipline too. But I feel pretty good. I feel pretty good.
Awesome. No, I'm just curious because I know that a lot of us on here listening, and I know I can relate to you too, that I'm like, I do a lot of different things, right? And so I'm consistently busy all the time. And so I ask myself that question too, like, is that working for me in the sense that am I just doing all these things to do them, to accomplish these, to be enough? Or am I doing them to serve, to show up and to love on people? And it sounds like you are really doing that to like the love on people and to yeah, have that you build that trust with so many people, which is a really powerful tool. Because I know that probably trust for you was not easy after going through your painful past experiences, right? And so how did you start rebuilding trust with people and humans?
So interesting question that I was asked similar question during a conference organized by Ijoma, who is from Nigeria, and then she was doing the conference women who were divorced and then overcame the um, mess after the divorce and stuff. And then she was asking similar questions. Um, and I actually wrote a short script about it too. When you look at the statistics of human being, it's about 8 billion people on this earth. So why would you let possibly one or two perpetrator fuck up your life when
Yeah.
you have 8 billion opportunities to trust? And there are good people, and there are not so good people, but that doesn't mean I would be completely not trusted because something happened to somebody, because I'm completely different than that person. So
Yeah.
I would be sad if you don't trust me, Alicia, because of your past, because I am not them. And so that applies. And then also, that's one technique. But the number two is don't have any expectation from people. So like say so for instance, like I had a horrible divorce, but that's nothing to do with me. I didn't do it, he did it. And then as long as I'm ethical and I'm like standing up for what I believe, people can do whatever, but I'm not doing that. So I think your standard and your expectation for yourself comes first. Then because people can hurt you, people can do things, right? But as long as you stay true to yourself and as long as you're a good person, I think that's important. And number three, when people say something, do something, it's really up to you to react or not react, right? So if somebody says, "Oh, you bitch" or something, I'm like, okay, I'm not. Like, no, I'm amazing. I just want to tell you a quick story. So my daughter is 4. You saw her, and then basically like um at the preschool, some boy told her, "You're not beautiful," and then her response, she told me, was, "That's not true. I'm model. I'm beautiful."
That's the best. She learned that somewhere, so that's awesome.
Well,
Yeah.
I've been telling her, like, if anybody
Awesome.
say that you're not beautiful, whatever, that tell them that's not true. And then that's like really attitude. Even 4-year-old can do that. So why not as an adult? And then, if somebody says something to you, like brush it off. And then if you think that's not true, just tell them that's not true.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. Oh my goodness. That's not true. I'm a model. I'm gonna start using that line. But it is so true. Like we really like allow others to tell us who we are. But if we truly look in at ourselves, we truly take the time to learn and grow and to figure out who we are. Because oftentimes after abuse, right, we don't even feel like we know who we are. Because hi, you're a model, aren't you?
Yes.
I believe it. You look beautiful.
Thank you.
Oh my goodness, you can talk all day. You have a cute voice.
Thank you.
Okay, go.
She's so cute. But so for a while, like we haven't been able to really know who we are inside. After abuse, you talked about putting on the mask, talked about numbing yourself. And so really like it takes time to really believe who you are again. And so how did you start really knowing that you are amazing, that you are enough? How did you start believing that about yourself?
Alicia, I think I told you, I told at the conference, and then, it's just so bad that, I've been modeling since 17, and then like, I worked for Google, I worked for Citizens Bank, I worked for Apple, like huge company, and I was featured on Japanese TV, like 7.5 million people watched it. And I recently did a huge Hollywood A-star stars Oscar winning director, like Netflix movie as a principal.
Awesome.
I'm a pretty kick-ass person, but at the same time, like I really truly have struggled with, self-esteem. And when people say you're beautiful, stunning, I just don't believe like I'm beautiful. And it's sad, but at the same time, it's the truth. So I had this 30-day challenge where my acting coach told me to put complimental word compliment for yourself, like you're beautiful, like every day you say that maybe 22 times while you're brushing your teeth. I had everything in the mirror every day. I did that. Okay, go back. And then so I did that. I've done like EMDR. I've done like yoga, acupuncture, all that stuff. But at the end of the day, I shared with the audience, I had this serious nervous breakdown after being on the set for 12 hours. I didn't tell it at the conference, but I had to be on the set at 5 a.m. It was an hour and a half away drive. I got up at 2:30. I started to drive at 3:30. I got on the set at 5 a.m. I was in the movie trailer 12 hours in the cold sometimes, and then massive pressure, 500 people in the production. I had a serious nervous breakdown after I came home, and I had a brain freeze, my lines, everything. And then next morning I had to be on the set at 6 a.m. And I woke up at 3 in the morning. I had to start driving at 4:30 in the morning. It's hard work. And it's like 3:30, like I was looking at the mirror after I took a shower, and I said, bitch, you got this. You deserve
I love that. Yeah.
whining, get up and go. That's exactly what I said. And I just have to like beat my ass. I mean, like I just have to tell myself, you got this. You deserve this. You worked so hard to get here. And then I got picked by Oscar winning director to be a principal role. So I should be talented, I should be beautiful. And then like why am I beating myself up from this child sex abuse or in the past? You know what I mean? That's the struggle. That's the truth. And that's the like honest true story. So you're gonna be proud of me when you see them when you see my 5 seconds of fame.
I can't wait. I already know I'm like your biggest fan already. So for one, thank you so much for being honest, because a lot of times we when people ask us that question, we're like, oh, I just woke up like this, I'm confident, it's easy, right? It's like, no matter who you are, no matter how much success you have, it's still a choice to choose to be confident, choose to be enough, choose to be beautiful every single day. And you still get to look in the mirror. And I love that you said that, bitch, you got this. Because yeah, like we get to talk to ourselves like that. We get to pump ourselves up. Because I know you would never tell your daughter, right? You would never tell your daughter that she's ugly. You would never tell your daughter that she's not enough. And yet we do that to ourselves all the time. And so it's like, it's amazing that you do have a daughter so that you can be like, hey, what would I tell her? And you can tell yourself that. But did like, so do you do that every single morning still? Because it comes up and up again, right? It's not just one time, you're good.
No, no, no. That was just special moment that I had massive pressure, having so much expectation from like a huge like $200 million movie or whatever. So it was just like very special because I've been modeling and I've been on a production. I produce movie, I produce TV, so I'm in the production side of it. So I know ins and out of the industry, but I've never done that magnitude of production in my life. And it was massive expectation. I was pampered by 2 ADs. I didn't have to lift my finger. I was treated like princess, and that just got to me. And then that's why when I said, what I said.
Yeah, because every time we level up, there's a new level of uncomfortability, right? And so that was like a level up situation where you're in an even bigger production. And so it's important to also for our audience to listen and hear like what we're saying here. No matter what achievements you've had, you still get to talk to yourself like this. And we're no different than you. Like I think that we put people on pedestals, right? And I'm sure like Juri, you probably had a model or an actor that you like looked up to and you're like, wow, they can do all this, but I can't. And so can you just speak to like the for one, the judgment we put on ourselves and others and the comparison, but how did you start realizing like, no, I get to share my story. I am important and I can write a book.
I think it came really from a lot of people telling me, as especially after I've done like so many public speaking, TV, radio interviews, and conferences, that every time I am very sad to say, I a handful of people come to me and then tell me their story of survival or sexual abuse, that some like men actually that I met, somebody like came up to me and said he was victim from his dad or his siblings are victims. And I just felt compelled in the way that I was on an interview. A gift from adversity, the title that I chose, it's not just about the adversity, but it's the triumph accomplishment. And then I want it to be a testimonial. I want it to be some example of somebody that's done something even after the adversity, that I felt really compelled that my story could, if I could touch somebody, like even like one person, I would be happy through my words. And then in a way, when you do public speaking, like it just like that 30 minutes, 40 minutes for engagement. But my friend who actually recommended my book to his publisher, Yosef, was warning me, your book, once you publish, the book would have its own life, and then they would travel to different places. And that is happening to me. Like, for instance, the conference that I mentioned about the Nigerian woman, she saw my book on Amazon and she invited me as a speaker. And then I was in Phoenix with you guys because of my book. So I really feel that it's not just telling my story, but I told my publisher when I got the publishing deal, like I want to be part of the Me Too movement. I want to put a pressure for the perpetrator. I want to create a platform for the victims to be able to talk and then to able to have this dialogue. Like today, I don't think I would be talking to you if it wasn't my book. And in a way that it gave me an opportunity to tell the truth.
Yeah.
As a journalist, Alicia, I have to tell you one thing. I covered a story about three women who were sexually assaulted in different parts of the world: Guatemala, Nigeria, and India. And I was telling yesterday's interview that if I was a male reporter, maybe they wouldn't have opened up as much as they would have. And then if I didn't share what happened to me, maybe they wouldn't have felt comfortable, because knowing that it's gonna be read by so many people, that as a journalist too, there's a movie called Spotlight where they talked about Catholic child molestation, where Ocean Globe reporters really investigated the truth and they shed a light. And then that's kind of how I got my job as a journalist, because I talked to my manager how empowering that movie was to
Mhm.
bring justice to the crime, whether the perpetrator is the president of America or like whatever the authority that they have, parents, right? So I think for us as a survivor or a victim, we all have a weapon to use our voice to prevent this and create this talk and dialogue, educate people around us so that if any signs are occurring, we can prevent that. We can educate our children to stand up for themselves, and then again, tell the body processes, and then just recognize what's wrong, what's right. Because if I was maybe educated by somebody when I was 8, 9, 10, that this is a crime, that they can go to jail, then
Yeah.
you can go to police if this happened. If I had known, I would have maybe gone to the police.
Yeah. 100%.
Nobody taught me. Nobody taught me.
Nobody told me either. Yeah.
No,
Hmm.
nobody. There was no education and there was no awareness. So therefore, go back to your questions earlier. That what would you do? Like, what's your advice to the victims right now if they're suffering? It's equally important for people who are not victim to be educated and then be aware of the system and how it works, and then how justice should be served, and then what are resources.
Yeah, exactly. It's all of our responsibility to speak up and use our voices and to know what to do when this does happen. And I loved what you shared, that you went to different speaking engagements. People kept talking about you sharing your story more, and then you created a book. And so I just want to encourage people watching that we all of our voices matter, and it doesn't look the same for everybody. You don't have to be on Facebook Lives. You don't have to be on Instagram and Facebook. You don't have to be creating a book. Yeah, absolutely. It would be powerful if you did. Your voice matters. And you might just have to, you might be sharing your story to a family member, and it might change their life. It might save your daughter's life, your nephew's life, whoever it is. So I encourage you guys just to realize that your voice really does matter. And sharing your story is so important, because that's one of the things that when what's in the darkness grows bigger, right? And that's how abuse spreads. Is because we feel shameful and guilty about it happening, and so we don't even want to share it. You mentioned that too. I went through shame and guilt as well, and I know that a lot of people who've gone through abuse feel like they can't say it out loud. But that's almost the most painful part, is when you feel like you can't share it out loud, right? Would you agree that it's just like not being able to share it out loud is so painful?
Yeah, 100%. And that's the sad part about it. Again, the perpetrators should be silenced. They should be muted. They should be shamed and then embarrassed, not us. And that's like the whole crazy thing about it. A lot of victims that I talked to, they experience the same. It's a second wave, third wave of, attack, which is from the people that you share, or maybe perpetrator will manipulate people and then tell you that you are that, and then that really happened to me too. So I had like not initial like incident of the abuse, but afterwards, if there's no um allies and then no support system, you're gonna get attacked by witnesses. You're gonna get attacked by people who perpetrate or manipulate. Like my case, like the teacher told me I'm a traitor, I'm an ungrateful daughter because my dad manipulated them.
Yeah,
So at the end
exactly.
of the day, it's you have to dodge those things, but as a child especially, it's impossible. It's really hard. And then in America, I've actually worked and covered a story for a non-profit organization called Norfolk Advocates for Children, where district attorney's office actually created several years ago. It's a one place that where the child would only tell one time, where before the victim would have to go to police and hospital and then DCF and then counselor and hospitals. You have to tell traumatic stories over and over 5 6 times, where
That's traumatizing alone. Yeah.
this agency have this mirror, like the room that you cannot see this way but they can see. So basically child would only tell the story in front of the video, but the stakeholders are in the room. They actually come to this location and they would make a decision in that room, in that moment, where they don't have to let the child victim go to some
Wow.
so
So
that is the system that's implementing in the state of Massachusetts, which I cover the story for. And those are the places that every state should have, and every places in the world should have. But at the same time, though, Alicia, one thing I have to tell you through doing the nonprofit work and then working with juvenile offenders, especially boys, they are coming from dysfunctional family, they have self-esteem, and they would eventually become the perpetrator. And then there's a very hard statistics showing that each perpetrator carries 6 victims under them. That means if you really focus on victims, there are 6 of them against one person that we can pressure and then, like, bring him or her to justice. Then 6 more people wouldn't suffer this, right?
yeah.
So I think in a way, a bigger picture, when you are coming from this functional family and then become, I don't know, like compulsive liar, like narcissistic syndrome.
Yeah.
It's like, so many issues that, especially men that cannot have a platform to talk about mental health. That's another issue that I think upbringings and all that stuff. I don't know what's the best solution to this, but I think we as a victim survivor, but also agencies and then system media like myself, a journalist, like, we just have to work together and then brilliantly. And then how can we prevent this in our lifetime? It might be impossible, but then we have to start somewhere. For instance, the Me Too movement that started. One of my great friend who writes for the Huffington Post, and then she wrote her molestation story using the real perpetrator's name. And Huffington Post said before the Me Too movement, we had to take it down after they posted it. They took it down, but after the Me Too movement started, she negotiated again. And then look, there are so many people who are victim of this. So why can't you post again? So they posted it, and then now they have so many. It's so many times. So
Yeah.
this is in our lifetime, Alicia, that happened, right? And
Yeah.
in Japan, Me Too movement is kind of starting to happen because some celebrities start to talk about this, but it was never talked about. So that's another thing, that what we are doing right now is truly, truly important. And I don't know who's watching it, but whoever is watching it, and then if you feel this information is valuable, like, and I would encourage them to share it. And then speaking about it is so important. And then I really appreciate you having me on your show and then doing what you are doing as victim yourself. That it's so admirable. I really appreciate it so much.
Yeah, I love what you said, because it's so important to know that we are making a difference. We can get in our heads that it's never going to end, and going down that road never works. So it's really important to remember there are so many changes. The Me Too movement, and now we're speaking up more. There's more coverage about it, and especially like right now, there's just a lot of coverage on it. So we got to keep going. So thank you so much for being on my show. I know we could talk all day long about this, and we will definitely have to keep talking off air and see what's next. But thank you so much for being on my show, sharing so many amazing tools and resources. Again, guys, we're going to be posting her book below, so you absolutely should get her book. And we will be posting some of the links she posted about what to do if you think someone is in abuse, and more knowledge to have, as well as even if you haven't gone through abuse yourself. So thank you so much.
Alicia, you are so amazing, and thank you so much for promoting my book, A Gift from Adversity. And you're such a truly amazing soul, and I'm so privileged to have met you.
Yes, you too. Thank you. Okay, have a good rest of your day. Bye.